Take all you got to give, but ain't it worth the try?
It's an unfortunate thing that one financial entity can come in and change so many people's lives. And the bottom line is it's dollars. I think it's been an improper use of state power and county power and the power of the old almighty dollar. I'm Scott Collin. I live and have worked here in Franklin County, in the eastern part of Washington State, for 60 years. I've lived here all my life, either farmed for my father or managed the farm since 1975. I'm just a regular guy. I work part-time for a living off the farm, part-time on the farm. I make ends meet. I'm a working man, blue collar all the way through. But I'll tell you what, this big money stuff has changed my outlook through and through on our government. And when you see the upper class getting so small and holding so much of the wealth, and you see farmers, doctors, blue-collar workers, and everybody else getting pushed down lower and lower, and all of a sudden, it's my prediction, someday we won't have a middle class in this country. My family's lived here since 1905, and in 2008, we learned that we were going to get 30,000 new neighbors. And the notice that we got was minimal. It probably met the legal minimum requirement, but we found out, some of us found out through the grapevine, some of us found out by letter from the county, and some of us found out from a public notice hardly larger than a postage stamp. It informed us that Easterly Corporation was building a feedlot in our neighborhood, a residential farm neighborhood that had been this way since my great-grandparents came in 1905, and changed the complexion of our neighborhood almost upside down. It's like living next to a city. And I guess I am, a city of 30,000 residents that don't have any sewage treatment. Our primary concern from the get-go was water. And that's where we have to look into just why are they letting them take all of our water? It's upsetting to us because water is the one thing that keeps our homes and our farms functional out here. We don't need a lot of water. The Easterly Corporation will use in 1 year what the 25 Corners Family Farmers, the group that we organize, our little community out here, they'll use in 1 year what 20 of us will use in 200 years. I think that's fundamentally unfair and unjust. The feedlot up there uses as much water as we probably use in a couple hundred years, all 20 of us. And they use that in 1 year. It's really unbalanced. And when you figure that it's a limited resource, and most likely will go away someday, and thanks to them, probably a lot faster than it probably should. I'm no expert on this, but it just doesn't add up right. And like I say, without our water, you just can't live out here anymore. Oh, they talked about jobs, and they provided some jobs, and those poor guys that work up there make very minimal wages. The conditions they've got to work in are, I pity them, having to work around that all day long. But these fellows are probably glad to have a job. They probably provided jobs for 15 or 20 people, maybe a few more, I'm not sure. But the bottom line is there's profit in there. And the way that the cattle industry in general lined up against us right from the get-go. Here we were, 20 small farmers. We've got the state government, the local government, the county government against us. Cattlemen's associations statewide were prepped and ready to fight us every step of the way. 1 week after the conditional use permit, our state senator approached me and told me to basically, he's a fellow that lived about 15 miles from here, and told me basically to get in line with the program. Now, he did it in kind of a friendly manner, but in all the time that that senator was my neighbor to the north of me, about 15 miles away, and the time that he was a public servant, he never once contacted me until this Easter Day project got started, this big Cattlemen's Association thing. And then he contacted me. And the man's passed away since, and I won't use his name, and I won't begrudge him any more than I already have. But doggone it, there was something there. People were lined up, knew about this project, and there was a plan to fight us right from the get-go. I was a strong believer in local government and the unbiased attitudes of it. I've seen, since this thing started, I've been disappointed by the performance of a judge who seemed to rule in our favor on one issue and 6 months later reversed herself and her entire judgment. Now, she's an elected judge, and I wonder what happened in that 6 months period that she changed everything she had to say. I've seen us go before a pollution control hearings board and to have proactive response from those judges, and then 6 months later come back and make paltry decisions where they seem so proactive during the time of the hearing towards our cause and towards the righteousness of our cause. I've become a skeptic in our local government. I've become disappointed, disillusioned, perhaps. I was a pretty staunch conservative when this started. I would find it really hard for me to vote for a conservative candidate now. I haven't given up on the democratic system, but I just feel like money talks so loudly to so many of our congressmen and so many of our politicians. I never believed that before. Boy, what an eye-opener this has been. I never would have considered voting for Jay Inslee until this situation started up. Like I say, I was conservative. I was a dyed-in-the-wool lifetime Republican. I wouldn't vote for Rob McKenna now if he was the last man running. Quite frankly, if he was the only one running, I would not vote. But I'd still campaign against him. I think, this is my personal opinion, I think he was bought off. I think big cattle or big dairy or the combination of both got to him. For 60 years we had this law. It was written in 1945. And I think the law should be interpreted from that viewpoint when the congressman put it in. That 1945, there wasn't no such thing as a 30,000 head feedlot. Like I said, big feedlots in those days were 100, 200, maybe 500 head if you were considered big. Most farm managers, small farmers out here had 25 or 50 head of cows, maybe brood cows, and they'd raise some calves, finish the calves off themselves, and that was multiplied hundreds of times by local family farmers. And guys like Rob McKenna have come in, and he's taken this law and advantaged big cattle, big money, big feedlots. These big feedlots won't hang around if there's not big meat cutters to take them up. And I think the big meat cutters are in collusion with them, and I think these feedlots are designed specifically to furnish the needs of big corporate feedlots. And these are national or international cutting houses, excuse me. I've been upset with the decision that was made. I'm upset as much with our local legislature as I am with Rob McKenna, because they've kept their hands off this like a hot potato. They're afraid to touch it. One, they're afraid to anger the environmental lobby. They're afraid to anger the small farmers. They're afraid to anger the public in general. And yet, on the other hand, they're trying to support the feedlots and the big cutting houses and the big ag interests that are in this state. And again, it comes down to money, in my opinion. It comes all to money about how this is done. the issue of family farmers that I've learned about in the last 3 years is, by definition, what the large farm organizations want a family farmer to be. Cody Easterday, who owns these 30,000 head feedlots, and he has several of them, has stated, well, we're family farmers. Well, he's right. He's a family, and I guess what he does is farming. I wouldn't classify it as farming. One man working a property for the survival and needs of his family. He's a corporate entity, and as such, I don't think he's a family farmer personally. Too many, though, of our farm organizations have centered around bigger and bigger farming. Too many farmers have gotten into the bigger is better. Too many farmers now are trying to build a little empire. We've seen that in people that especially have reaped the benefit of the Easterday largesse. Their expansion is beyond what, I don't know, a regular farmer, especially a family farmer, would even consider. I talked to an old friend one time, and he said his dad said, you know, I don't have to be a big, fancy, powerful, rich man. He says, I want a home and a provision for my family. And that's, to me, a family farmer. I grew up on a family farm, and we slopped hogs, we raised chickens, we butchered chickens. We ate chickens because that was part of the protein provision of our farm. We raised wheat. It was a cash crop. And some years, the cash crop wasn't that good. And we'd bale up the wheat and make it into hay and feed it to our cows, or feed it to our hogs or our chickens, whatever we did to make ends meet. We raised a garden and brought in our own vegetables, and Mom would can, and my wife's canned. Just anything like that to make the ends meet, and you'd had enough cash to operate your home, and we had comfortable homes, but we worked hard, but we worked our property, but we didn't have to be an empire. Too many of these guys, I've seen our neighborhood go from probably over 100 farmers around here to just a handful. And like I say, we scrounged up 20 guys locally to join our organization, but the rest were great big farmers that aren't interested in family farms. They're looking to expand and to absorb, and I think you see this the way the large equipment manufacturers have changed things. When I was a boy, a farmer, and granted there's a money difference, but one farmer would buy a small combine for $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000, and now one combine can cost above $250,000. A tractor. I've got an old cat my dad had bought new in 1951, the year I was born. It still runs good. Caterpillar made a real good tractor. 1951, and it still runs. I've modernized it, upgraded it. It cost $9,000 new. That same tractor had cost $150,000 or more nowadays, just for one farm's tractor. It's beyond the scope of a lot of farmers. But I can manage to get by because I used equipment. I keep it maintained, and it works for me. I don't have to have the newest piece of green on the block or a brand new yellow tractor. I don't have to have a brand new pickup. I make a good living for my family, and I've supplemented my income on the farm a little bit with working out. But I know a lot of my neighbors that have the same philosophy as me, and they don't have to work off the farm. They've got nice equipment. It's not new, but they manage to supply the needs of their family, and they do it without having to have the newest piece of green, like I said, or newest tractor sitting in the block. Behind me, you can see the windmill tower. It's right above our well pit. The well is about 725 feet deep. It was drilled in about 1905. We've had three major pumping systems on it. There's the windmill tower. We used that until about 1947. Electricity was brought out here through the REA in 47, 48. My dad built this water tower in 1947. My dad put in a Jensen jack, which is like an oil field pump. It ran a rod that went down 700 feet down to the pumping mechanism, and it would pump about 5 to 6 gallons a minute. In 2008, that system was worn out, and I replaced it with a submersible pump. It's set at 725 feet, and it pumps between 10 and 12 gallons a minute. This is a system we use for our domestic water only. We don't irrigate with that. There's not enough water. We do have a lawn and a little garden, but mostly it's for our domestic use in the house. This is the only water source that we have, and without it, living here on the ranch would probably be impossible. We could probably still function our business possibly as a remote business, but we'd have to live probably anywhere from 15 to 30 miles away. The water is the one vital element that we have out here, and without it, we just can't live here. Well, right behind me, you're seeing what Easter says is about 25,000 head of cows. We're not sure that that number's exactly that, but as you can see, there's a lot of cows there. You can see on the far left, there's a huge pile of manure, and on the right is the new circles that they put in. The pens are individual pens, and the cows are rotated from pen to pen, as I understand. Also, it's probably hard to see at this point, but there's great big water guns that they use in the summertime, and in the summertime you can see that they're almost constantly on. There wasn't any plan for irrigation when they first established this. Now it seems that there is. And from what I've heard from ecology is that just a little addendum change will give them the right to do that. So we're using water in a completely dry environment out here. For years we've been living out here. We're dryland farmers, and there's been no provision for irrigation. The Department of Ecology had said for years that there was a moratorium, and so those of us that might have been interested in irrigating didn't get a chance. The feedlot came in, and all of a sudden there was water abundance, and they did transfer water right from another farm, but they're using considerably more than what that allowed for. Is the Easter feedlot that they put up. It's got a footprint, I'd say roughly around 200 acres. You see the big water cannon. They're going up to the left of the feed mill and stuff up there, and that's for controlling dust and I guess for cooling the cattle. Those big guns come on and they cycle clear across the feedlot. There's multiple pins that go across here. They use a lot of water, and even with their record keeping, it's an amazing amount. Well, from what I've seen on the reports, it's over 500,000 gallons a day, but the height of the summertime, I would estimate they're probably close to 1 million gallons a day. Now that they're using circles up there, I'm sure that they're going way over that. The ground up there where the circles are at is wet. I mean, you can see the difference in the color of the ground. They put a lot of water out there, and I don't know how they get away with that, how they do it, because as I understand, there's no water right yet there. They're still using the Stockwater exemption, but they're irrigating, and I don't know how they explain it. If somebody said that they were putting effluent in the water, you know, and getting rid of the manure that way. That's a common practice, but none of us have seen anything in the lagoons that would support the amount of volume that's going into these fields. Yeah, in the summertime we're probably using, I'd say, maybe 20,000 gallons a week. In the wintertime we use about 1,500 gallons a week. I'm worried about my well because I'm at 750 feet. I've got a small 6-inch diameter hole, and I'm I'm not sure exactly what the diameter of their hole is. It's at 1,600, roughly 1,600 feet, but I've heard it's a huge diameter. I'm talking probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 inches in diameter, and I think it's at least 30, but I don't know that for certain. But to get the volume of water out that they're getting, it's got to be huge. And they haven't exactly invited me to go up there and inspect their operation. Even when I stand on the edge of my own property up there, sometimes they're sending somebody out with a pickup to check me out, you know, and I'm not on their property, I'm on mine. Well, over the last 2 years, since we upgraded the well and put in the modern pumping system, it seems to me that the level of the well is dropping. And it seems to me we've dropped probably 30 to 50 feet in 2 years. But we're concerned that there is a significant drop. Exactly what it is, I don't know. But I see the water dropping. And this is all since the large volume user to the north of us has gone into business. We're concerned about losing our water because our domestic water is the only source of water we have. And without that, we probably can't live out here. We lose our home, we lose it all. I've lived here for 60 years. My mother lived her life here. My grandmother bought this place where our house stands in 1930. My great-grandfather came here in 1905, 1907, in that area. And he lived for about 15 years, and he passed the farm on to his children. Established my grandmother, and established my mom and dad, and established myself, my wife, and our children. It was my hope that someday our small farm could be passed on to my son. He's an active service. He's a warrant officer in the Green Berets. Good guy. Someday he's going to have to leave the Army because he's going to get too old. And, you know, he's expressed an interest to take over the farm. Unfortunately, if there's no water, there won't be any transfer of this farm. Not so that anybody would really want, you couldn't live out here. The idea of transporting water is just economically not feasible. I think it's unfortunate that big money interests can garner so much special protection and provision by local government. That local government can be so swayed by an individual who owns this corporation that he gets special privilege. It's disillusioning to me because I was raised America the free, home of the equal, home of the brave. And money wasn't supposed to be able to do that. There was supposed to be protection for the small guy. I've lost that feeling and that belief. I really believe our local government abused us. I think they did not represent us. And I'm talking about everything from our local planning board to our commissioners to our judges, and even like the Department of Ecology. I'm condemning a lot of them. I think there's some decent people in each of those organizations. But all those organizations have failed us. And the way that the imbalance has been shown for the benefit of the almighty dollar.
Well, take all you got to give, but ain't it worth the try?